The millionaire's baby silences everyone after his humble worker is unfairly accused. The glass walls of Carter Logistics' towering headquarters sparkled under the bright October sun. The city's crisp autumn air swept through the streets below, carrying the hum of engines and distant chatter. Inside, polished floors gleamed and sharp-suited executives hustled between meetings. It was a world of cold steel, bright screens, and deadlines. James Carter's world. Sharp instincts built this empire, every detail fine-tuned to ruthless precision. But this morning, something shattered the calm like a wrecking ball. James sat behind his massive oak desk, fingers drumming restlessly. A message popped up on his encrypted phone, a crisis twisting the air around him. Mia Thompson, warehouse worker, soft-spoken, always there. Years in the trenches, nobody questioned her. Now she stood accused of theft. The words felt like acid in James's mouth. Theft from his very company? The message had a shadow over it. Suspicious circumstances. No proof, just whispered allegations dripping with doubt. Yet it was enough to threaten to rip everything from Mia's hands. The job she clung to, her modest apartment, the life she fought for quietly. The office around James felt suddenly colder, the steel sharper. People noticed the shift. Murmurs spread like wildfire across the marble hallways. James Carter defending a warehouse worker? That's unheard of, one executive muttered, eyes narrowed. Another sneered. What's the millionaire really up to? The queen of gossip in the cafe raised her eyebrow, typing furiously on her phone. The buzz was electric. Shock, disbelief, curiosity. Tangled in every glance. James's chest tightened, a lump rising, his throat dry. He clenched his jaw and tried to push back the flood of memories. Nights spent in cramped apartments, scrapping for scraps, feeling invisible. The sting of being overlooked, judged before people even really saw him. That same raw ache he sensed in Mia's silence. He stared out his window at the city below. Soon, those streets would spill stories no one expected. Then the bombshell dropped. James wasn't just stepping in to clear Mia's name. No, he planned to reveal something that blew apart every rule, every social wall, every carefully edited headline. Mia wasn't just an employee. She was his daughter. That secret, that moment of raw, unguarded truth. A baby born from an encounter neither wanted spotlighted. A life bridging worlds locked in conflict. The room spun, whispers crescendoed. Some faces went pale, others hardened into suspicion. Loyalty now tangled in blood and scandal. Trust splintered like shattered glass, and the questions gnawed fierce. Who set Mia up? What dark forces prowled behind the polished surface of fortune and power? How far would James bend, no, break to shield her from the storm? His hands trembled, heart pounding like a war drum. The empire he built felt suddenly fragile. Outside the windows, autumn leaves danced, indifferent to the battle raging inside. The clock ticked on. The game had just changed. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. James stood frozen, the weight of his revelation pulsating in the air like a live wire. Mia wasn't just a worker in his company. She was blood, a daughter whose existence he had kept buried under layers of secrecy. Whispers filled the room, a cacophony of shock and disbelief. Suddenly, the door swung open with a crash, and a figure stormed in, disrupting the charged atmosphere. It was Greg, his most trusted executive, eyes blazing as if he carried a storm on his shoulders. What's going on here? Greg's voice boomed, cutting through the tension. James felt his heart race. Mia's been accused of theft. I'm here to protect her. But as he spoke, Greg's expression morphed from concern to something darker. Protect her or protect yourself? The words hung ominously in the air. An uncomfortable silence enveloped the room. A bead of sweat trickled down James's spine. What are you implying? He shot back, his own defense feeling flimsy. We all know how you operate, James. It wouldn't be the first time you've bent the rules. The murmurs intensified again, feeding off Greg's accusations. Faces twisted in uncertainty and judgment. Was this about Mia, or was it about James's past? The air turned electric. In that moment, a flash of color caught James's eye. A post-it note slipping from Greg's pocket as he gestured wildly. It fluttered to the floor, like a leaf caught in a windstorm. Without thinking, James lunged for it. But his fingers brushed it just as another hand reached down. Greg's hand. James looked up and Greg's face was a mask of fury. Stay out of it, James, he spat, wrenching the note from James's grasp. But the damage was done. Everyone in the room had seen. What's that? Someone whispered, eyes darting between the two men. Greg hesitated, the moment stretching painfully. Then his defiance cracked. It's nothing. Just a reminder, he stammered, but James saw the fear flicker behind his eyes. Show us, James demanded, voice firm. The room watched, tension coiling tightly. With a reluctant sigh, Greg tore the paper open, revealing a series of names linked to a months-long investigation into corruption at Carter Logistics. Mia's name stood out, highlighted with bold ink. He was supposed to keep it quiet, Greg whispered, but someone in this room, someone has been digging, and they found her. Shocked gasps echoed. James felt the world spin again. Mia wasn't just an innocent victim. She was a pawn in a game much darker than he could have imagined. Who did this? His voice was a ragged whisper. The betrayal snaked through him like poison. Eyes darted around the room, uncertainty blooming like a grotesque flower. I don't know, I swear. Greg's trembling hands betrayed his sudden vulnerability. The facade of loyalty crumbled. The crowd was restless now, buzzing like hornets. You're telling me someone set up Mia to get to James? Someone asked, disbelief lacing their voice. A crash echoed as a nearby chair toppled. All heads jerked toward the sound, revealing a new figure stepping from the shadows. A woman who had been lurking, eyes glinting with secrets. I think it's time you all learned the truth, she said, voice dripping with a honeyed malice. You don't know who you're really dealing with. James's heart plummeted. The narrative was spiraling out of control, and he felt like he was grasping at smoke. Who was she? What could she possibly reveal that would change everything? As the murmurs faded, silence fell heavily around him. The clock ticked louder, every second a reminder of the impending storm. The game was far from over, and now the real battle was just beginning. James's heart raced, pounding against his chest like a caged animal. The woman stood there, eyes glinting, her presence heavy in the air. He couldn't shake the restless feeling that she was more than just an observer in this chaos. Who are you? He finally asked, forcing the words out. The room was still, breath held, tight as if the air had thickened. I'm the one who knows the truth, she replied, her voice smooth as silk, yet laced with steel. And it's time you all faced it. Greg shifted awkwardly, sweating bullets. What truth? This is about Mia, not whatever game you think you're playing. But the woman merely laughed, a chilling sound. Oh, it's all connected, love. All of it. You see, Mia didn't just get caught in the crossfire. She's the center of it. James felt the world tilt under him, the implications of her words knocking the wind from his lungs. What do you mean? What have you done? Her smile was serpent-like, sharp, and dangerous. You thought I was just a bystander. In truth, I orchestrated the entire setup. Gasps filled the room, eyes darting from the mysterious woman to James and back again. The walls of confidence he built were crumbling. He grounded himself with a steely gaze. Why? What's your endgame? The company you've built, your empire, is founded on lies. I'm here to expose it. What's hidden must come to light. James could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him, creating an ache in his chest. You think dragging Mia into this is going to help your cause? The woman stepped closer, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Oh, James, you underestimate her importance. Mia holds the key to everything. If we're going to expose the real rot in Carter Logistics, we need to either break her or rally. To our side, shockwaves rippled through the crowd. Mia, the quiet worker, now thrust into the spotlight of this chaotic revelation. James's mind raced. How do you know her? What's your connection? With every passing moment, the tension built. She leaned in, her voice dropping to just above a murmur. I'm her mother. Silence fell like a thick fog. James's world imploded. What? That's impossible, he shouted, disbelief clawing at him. His thoughts flooded with memories, a secret, a past cloaked in ambiguity, yet the confirmation of this revelation sent his heart reeling. Is it? Don't you see? She's the reason I've been watching. I didn't want her caught in your world. The room erupted in murmurs, a sea of confusion and betrayal. You're lying, James hissed. Through clenched teeth, anger bubbling up. You were never there. Because I had to protect her, the woman shot back, hot tears shimmering in her eyes. Your empire wasn't built for her. It was built to keep her away from me. A tension-filled silence settled, heavy and suffocating. Each person was trapped in their own whirlwind of emotion. Jealousy, anger, shock, everything collided, creating a storm. Then, as if prompted by the crowd's growing restlessness, a loud crash echoed from outside. The windows rattled, a blaring siren cutting through the air, breaking the tension like glass shattering. What now? Greg demanded, fear evident in his expression. James's pulse quickened. Something's wrong. The cacophony outside grew louder, now accompanied by shouts and frantic movement. All eyes turned to the glass walls, where chaos unfolded. Suddenly, a group of uniformed officers rushed toward the building, badges glinting in the autumn sun. Behind them, a sea of reporters surged, cameras flashing like angry lightning. What the hell is going on? Someone shouted. James's mind raced. This wasn't just about Mia or the woman claiming to be her mother. It was deeper, darker. He had to protect Mia, but now his own empire was at risk. Get her out of here, he yelled, pointing at the woman. But in that moment, a loud voice surged through the chaos. James Carter, we have a warrant for your arrest. Shock flooded the room, raw and electric. The tables had turned, and suddenly, everything James knew felt flipped on its head. His empire was crumbling, and secrets thirsting for daylight had finally escaped. His heart sank, despair creeping in. What had he missed? What would it take to save Mia? As he turned back to the whirlwind of shouting voices and flashing cameras, one thought echoed in his mind. How did it get this far? The game had changed, but the stakes were higher than ever. And no one knew how deep this web of lies truly went. The air in the room felt electric, charged with confusion and fear. James stood frozen, the weight of the woman's revelation pressing down on him. Everywhere he turned, eyes darted, blood ran cold, and whispers echoed like thunder. Even as officers burst through the door with their harsh shouts, James's mind was reeling from the woman's claim about Mia, his daughter. Mia's mother? He repeated, disbelief twisting his stomach. He felt the ground beneath him shake, but this was no mere earthquake. This was a cataclysm, shifting everything he thought he knew. The officers advanced, the sounds of their voices blending with the chaos around them. James Carter, step away from the woman, one officer barked, the sharpness slicing through the air. James didn't move. No. You need to hear me out. Panic gripped him tighter. Mia is innocent. Someone set her up. The woman shot him a look drenched in disdain. You're still thinking about yourself, James. This isn't just about protecting her from these people. Her voice dropped, dark and chilling. It's about the truth. She deserves to know who she really is. But Mia stood frozen, eyes wide, filled with confusion. What is happening? What truth? Before James could respond, the doors swung open again, slamming against the walls with a deafening sound. This time it wasn't just police. A group of men in black suits marched in, holding something that glinted ominously, a set of folders. A hushed silence fell over the crowd. "You're making a mistake, Carter," one of them yelled, his voice cutting through the tension. "We know about the offshore accounts." Suddenly, a memory sparked in James's mind. A deal made in shadows, whispers of money changing hands, avoiding the light at all costs. "What are you talking about?" he croaked, the conviction crumbling. In his chest, the man stepped forward, eyes hard like stone. "We have all the evidence we need. You lied to everyone. Your empire was built on betrayal, and it reaches deeper than you ever realized." A ripple of shock cascaded through the onlookers, their expressions switching from confusion to horror. James's hands trembled. "This isn't the time for this. We're in the middle of—" "Mia is part of this too," the man interrupted. "You can't keep hiding her." The weight of those words hit like a punch. Daniel, his closest friend, turned pale. "What do you mean? How could she—" A solo gasp broke through, a clutch of fists tightening as the reality settled and transformed the air. "No," James whispered sharply, disbelief coursing through him. "No, it can't be true." Mia stared at James, realization dawning, horror creeping into her features. "What are they saying? They can't be serious." "Yes, they are," the woman said, her voice now cold, calculating. "You were never just a worker, Mia. You're tied to this company in ways you don't even know. They'll use you to bring him down." James felt the walls of his world closing in. Betrayals layered upon betrayals, shifting alliances. Everything felt twisted. He glared at the officer confronting him, fear clawing at his insides. "Get out now, you don't understand." But as the officer stepped forward to cuff him, something changed in Mia. A flicker of defiance ignited in her eyes. "No, don't you dare put him in handcuffs. He's done everything to protect me." That fire made James's heart race. She would fight for him, or was this just the beginning of the darkness closing in? Without warning, a loud crash erupted outside, screams mingling with the now distant shouts of the officers. James quickly turned to his window. Chaos unfolded in the streets, the kind of havoc that spoke of a storm. "Mia, we need to leave," he shouted desperately. But as she stood rooted in place, torn between loyalty and newfound truth, the ground beneath them shook. A piece of news flashed on the screens lining the walls. Carter Logistics, corruption scandal unveiled. In that moment, the truth wasn't just the woman's claim or the officer's accusations. It was the very foundation of their existence. Cracking, and James realized with sickening dread that everything he'd fought to build, everything he'd kept hidden, it was unraveling fast. "What happens now?" Mia whispered, eyes darting between him and the chaos outside. James looked out, heart pounding, knowing the storm was coming, but his own heart raced, not just with fear. He felt anger, betrayal, a rawness that shook him to the core. All he wanted to do was protect her, his daughter. But now, the question burned in the air, heavy and suffocating. Could he save her from the very truth that might destroy them both? James felt the room close in, panic wrapping his chest like a vice. "What do you mean Mia is tied to this company?" he repeated, desperately searching the faces. Around him, Mia's eyes flared with confusion, her trust crumbling like fragile glass. The woman's gaze was icy. "You built a fortune on secrets, James. Mia is the key that unlocks everything, and you've been too blind to see it." "No, this isn't happening," James shouted, anger surging. "You're lying to protect your own failures." The officers closed in. The urgency churned in the air. "Get down on the ground now," one barked. James felt the weight of his choices crashing down around him. Mia stepped backward, heart racing, confusion painted across her face. Is this true? Am I really a part of this? Her voice trembled, wavering with fear. Yes, the woman snapped, frustration flaring. You always were, but you deserve to know, not just. Be a pawn in James's deceptive game. Enough, James's voice sculpted a demand in the air. This isn't about this harebrained more. But the woman continued, as if he hadn't said a thing. Remember that missing shipment from 3 years ago? The one that would make or break your empire? What? James felt the ground shift beneath him, like the earth beneath his feet had opened up into an abyss. Those memories clawed at him, exposed veins of guilt. And that wasn't the only scandal. She pressed on, her voice low and sinister. You think I was just watching? I was living it. Watching as you played the hero, while I was pushed into the shadows. Shadows don't matter when you're ruining lives, James shouted, fists clenching at his sides. Suddenly, chaos erupted at the window. A flash, a brilliant white glow shot through the glass. James turned just in time to see the riot forming below, the crowd surging like a wave, chaos and adrenaline colliding. But it was the sound that froze him, a loud explosion, then deafening shouts. Get down, one officer yelled, diving for cover. Glass shattered like rain, a piercing crack echoing in the air. Deep in his gut, James sensed danger. This wasn't just a protest anymore. It felt like war. We need to move, he yelled at Mia, grabbing her arm, pulling her away from the chaos. But when he turned to the woman, ready to loop her into the escape, she was gone, vanished like smoke in the air, leaving nothing but a whisper of regret behind. Mia, James shouted, and time slowed. She was staring wide-eyed, horror wrapped around her like a cloak. What was she talking about? Who is she really? I don't know, but we don't have time. She said I was important, that I matter in some twisted game. Panic charged her voice. They heard more shouts from outside. The officers were yelling into radios. We need backup. Get the media away. Become aware of sons and daughters on the street, the new faces of revolution. James, what if she's telling the truth? Mia's voice dropped to a hushed whisper, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. What if my life is part of this mess? They're all trying to dig up secrets, Mia. They don't care. In that moment, realization hit him like a truck. Someone wants you dead. The words hung heavy, making the air so thick it was hard to breathe. Panic pitched. He grabbed Mia, turning toward the back exit, heart racing, blood pounding in his ears. But just as they started to move, another explosion ripped through the building. Fire and smoke billowed into the room. Alarms blared. People screamed. The room pitched into chaos. They stumbled back, hearts racing, adrenaline pumping. James could feel the heat on his skin, the distant crackle of flames, the sirens blaring louder by the second. And as James dragged Mia toward the exit, a shadow moved past him, creeping out of the smoke. It was just a flash, an apparition that vanished as quickly as it came. Stay close, he yelled, vision clouded with soot. Behind him, the fight continued, chaos unraveling. They were mere threads hanging on the edge as flames consumed everything. Trust shattered, lives entwined in a dark conspiracy they had only begun to understand. Where do we go? Mia shouted over the chaos. James's heart raced. Every instinct urged him to run, but as he turned to face the whirlwind, one thought pierced through the fear. We're not just running from the fire. We're running toward the truth. That mystery pulsed in the air as the flames drew ever closer, whispering unseen secrets, secrets that held the power to unravel everything. James felt the heat of the flames licking closer, the air thick with smoke and choking fear. Mia clutched his arm, eyes wide, uncertainty melting into firm determination. We need to go now. They stumbled towards the back exit as chaos erupted all around them. Officers shouting, people racing for freedom, glass raining down like fragile raindrops. But in that moment, a deafening thud resonated outside, pulling their focus. The building trembled as the earth beneath them shook. What was that? Mia gasped, her voice a whisper filled with dread. Before James could respond, a massive explosion rocked the building, sending debris flying. Terrified shouts filled the air, drowning out their thoughts. Seizing Mia's hand, he pulled her away from the door, adrenaline surging. But as they turned to flee, a familiar figure emerged from the haze. It was the woman, the one claiming to be Mia's mother. She appeared as if summoned from the chaos, her eyes burning with an intensity that stunned them both. "What are you doing? Get out!" James shouted, frustration bubbling. "Listen to me," she cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm trying to save you both." "Mia is innocent," he snapped back, but the way she hesitated made him realize something felt off. She stepped closer, her urgency spilling into a frantic plea. "She's not just innocent, James. Mia holds the key to everything." Before he could question her further, the ground shook again, deeper this time, as if the world was rumbling in revolt. Suddenly, a blinding light burst through a nearby window, illuminating the room with an eerie glow. James shielded his eyes, heart racing. Then, a sound like thunder rolled in, shaking the very foundations. The wall beside them splintered, raining drywall and debris down. "Mia!" James shouted, instinctively squeezing her hand tighter as panic surged. But that wasn't the only shock to follow. As the dust began to settle, an echo of familiar laughter filled the room. A voice they thought they'd banished, a specter from the shadows. The sound sliced through the noise, a twisted lullaby. "Did you really think you could outrun this, James?" James turned, eyes wide, heart pounding. It was Daniel, his closest ally, standing there with a smirk that seemed to distort reality itself. His clothes were crisp, as if he had just stepped out of an impeccably tailored suit, but the glint in his eyes was darker than James had ever known. "Daniel?" Mia whispered, confusion etched on her face. "Surprise," he replied, the mockery dripping from his words. "I've been waiting for this moment. You think you've been in control, but it's all been an illusion." "No, this can't be happening," James muttered, his mind racing. Betrayal carved deep lines across his face. "You set us up?" Daniel stepped forward, confidence oozing from every pore. "It's bigger than you think, James. Mia, she's the last piece, the linchpin in everything you've tried to cover." James's heartbeat thundered in his ears. "What do you mean? We were friends. You were with me. You helped build this company. But how can you build an empire on lies if you're caught? Simple. Make everyone believe you're innocent." A new wave of dread washed over James. It took him a moment to process the treachery. "You've been behind this the entire time. You wanted to use Mia as bait." "Think of her as collateral damage, James," Daniel said, his tone almost gleeful. "But this isn't just about you. You were all so eager to bury your secrets. But in your rush, you never saw what I was planning." James looked at Mia. Her expression shifted, comprehension dawning like a rising tide. "Are you saying all of this was because of me?" Before Daniel could answer, new sirens blared, echoing louder outside. The officers shouted into their radios, voices filled with urgency. The impending danger drew closer as they surrounded James and Mia, quaking under the weight of explosive revelations. "No, we're not done yet," Daniel scoffed, a new glint in his eye. "This is just the beginning." With that, he turned, bolting through the chaos like a firework launched into the night sky. "Follow me if you want to know the truth," he yelled back, the taunting laugh cutting through the cacophony. "James, what do we do?" Mia pleaded, breathless and shaky. James clenched his fists, uncertainty raging within him. "We've got to find him, find out the truth." But as they moved towards the shattered opening, the world around them shifted. The walls, once a sanctuary, closed in like a vice, crushing their resolve. Who else was hiding in the shadows? What other dark truths lay waiting, buried beneath the chaos? The storm was rising, and they had no idea of the depth of the darkness waiting just beyond the horizon. James felt the adrenaline coursing through him as he and Mia moved toward the exit. But Daniel's laughter echoed like thunder in the chaos around them. It was a taunting reminder that they weren't just running from the flames. They were running toward a truth that seemed impossibly entangled with their lives. "James, where do we go?" Mia's voice quivered, glancing back toward Daniel, uncertainty etched deeply in her features. "We have to find him, Mia. Find out what he knows." Panic filled his chest. Daniel had always been a callous master, manipulator. James couldn't fathom how deeply his betrayal cut. Just then, the entire room shook under their feet. "What now?" Mia exclaimed, stumbling against the wall as officers struggled to manage the chaos. "I don't know, but we need to go," he urged, pulling her to the back exit. But as they reached the doorway, Daniel's voice carried through the room, sharp and mocking. "You can't escape what you don't understand, James. You both are part of something much bigger." James's heart raced. He glanced at Mia, fear rippling across her face. "We're not scared of you, Daniel," he shouted back, but uncertainty hung in the air like smoke. "Keep telling yourself that." Daniel's eyes burned with something dark. "You're acting like you have control, but you don't. It's all in the past." At that moment, the building quaked again, this time more violently. The lights flickered as he felt the heat of the flames at his back. Something was building up, beyond just the chaos of their reality. The storm was not just outside, it rumbled within. Then it happened. A deafening sound, like thunder splitting the skies. A massive explosion erupted outside, shaking foundations and sending debris tumbling. Instinctively, James shielded Mia, but as the dust settled, what seemed almost surreal became gut-wrenching. In the distance, he caught the unmistakable flash of a camera. Reporters piled, swarming like ants, their voices a blend of excitement and fear. "Carter Logistics, scandal explodes in corporate upheaval." "What's happening?" Mia shrieked, still clutching his arm tightly. "I don't know," James shouted back, but as he squinted through the chaos, his world tilted. "Look over there." He pointed at a figure breaking through the crowd, a familiar silhouette emerging from the haze. "Get away from my daughter." It was Lisa, the long-lost woman he had thought was hiding, buried beneath time and shadows, the fallout of a million heartbreaks imprinted on her face. Her voice trembled with emotion, fear, anger, heartbreak, colliding in utter despair. James staggered back. "Lisa, you're alive? Why are you here?" "Mia," Lisa called, breathless. "You need to run. You don't know what they're planning." The world around them slowed, the chaotic noise fading into the background. All he could hear was the frantic beating of his heart as emotions battled within him. "What do you mean?" Mia stepped forward, her voice gentle but laced with confusion. "Everything," Lisa exclaimed, tears glistening in her eyes. "You're more than you think. You're part of a plan that could destroy us all." James felt the ground shift beneath him, a tidal wave of realization crashing over him. "What plan? What are you talking about?" A flicker of hesitation crossed Lisa's face, and he sensed it. A truth so powerful, it could change everything. "There's a reason you both were targeted. There's a man, someone pulling the strings, but he's not who you think." Through the haze of smoke and fear, something sparked within James. The pieces started to connect, shadows shifting into clarity. "Daniel? Or someone else?" he asked, but before she could answer, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance again, growing louder, building anxiety like waves crashing against the rocks. "Run!" Lisa shouted, urgency bursting forth as chaos reigned. But then came the chilling revelation. She stepped closer, urgency sharpening her gaze. "Because you might not believe me, but Daniel is not who he seems. He's your..." But the explosive truth hung in the air, suffocated by the surrounding chaos as another crash echoed, drowning the rest. Just then, a figure stepped into the light, obstructing the way out, an armed officer, eyes wide with recognition. "James Carter, you need to come with us. Now." Everything stopped. Where once was an escape, now stood the weight of destiny and the tangled threads of his past beckoned him toward an even darker truth lurking ahead. What was going to happen next? In a heartbeat, James felt everything he thought he knew spiral into uncertainty. What other hidden ties, buried secrets, and unforeseen betrayals awaited them? James felt his heart pound as the officer's demand hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "James Carter, you need to come with us, now." The words blurred for a moment as the room around them pulsed with chaos. Lisa's eyes widened in alarm. "You can't take him," she shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. "He needs to stay here." Mia's grip tightened around James's arm, her own fear tangible. "What's happening? You can't take him." James turned to Lisa, desperation lacing his voice. "What do we do?" But before Lisa could respond, something unexpected shifted in the crowd. A deafening crash erupted from the other side of the glass doors, causing everyone to flinch and turn. The officers tensed, preparing to engage in whatever havoc was breaking loose. Then chaos poured in, all guns drawn, all yelling. It felt surreal, like a terrible movie playing out. Officers moved like lightning, scrambling to maintain control, as a figure pushed through the throng, timid yet powerful in its approach. "Stop," the figure shouted, voice cracking with urgency. James squinted, his breath hitching. Who? But the figure was unmistakable. It was Mia's grandmother, the woman James had only heard about in passing, a ghost from their presumed past. Her hair wild, eyes bright with an unsettling fire as she locked onto Mia. "Mia," she called, rushing forward. "Get away from him." "What?" Mia said, bewilderment pouring over her features. "But, Mia, listen to me." Her grandmother's voice was both commanding and terrified. "He's not who you think he is. None of this is what it seems." The words shook James to his core. "What do you mean?" He felt the ground slip beneath him as new layers of reality unfurled. But before she could answer, the room erupted again with sound, the loud crash of glass shattering, a flurry of movement as people rushed to escape. "Mia, come on!" James shouted, pulling at her arm. The sense of urgency was overwhelming, like fire licking at their heels. "I can't leave her," Mia cried out, waving toward her grandmother, who stood there, eyes brimming with secrets. "Mia, please." Her grandmother's voice cracked, desperation edging its way into the air. "There's no time. He's going to hurt you." James felt the weight of a truth unraveling. "What do you know?" he demanded, his voice reverberating with anguish. But just as her grandmother opened her mouth to speak, a blinding flash filled the room. It was so bright that for a moment, nothing else mattered. When the light faded, the air shifted like a thick fog lifted suddenly. The crowd held its breath. Then a deep rumbling echoed from outside, a siren calls rising, frantic, heightened. As dust settled, all eyes turned to Mia's grandmother. Yet what happened next ripped through the atmosphere, like a thunderclap. She stepped forward, revealing not just concern in her eyes, but something more. "Not only that, Mia, James is your father." Silence swallowed the room. The truth crashed over James like a tidal wave. He stepped back, heart racing, internal panic churning. "What? No, that's impossible." But Mia's wide eyes glistened with unshed tears as realization dawned. "You're saying he's my father?" "Yes," her grandmother shouted, the weight of her words shattering everything built until now. "You have to understand, he was part of this twisted game, but he didn't know. He didn't know you existed until it was too late." James felt cold sweat trickle down his spine. "They told me you were gone. You decided to leave. But they didn't know," she faltered, voice trembling now. "They hid it from you both." Everything spun, confusion clawing at his mind. The tendrils of the truth unraveled all he held dear. Suddenly, walls built to protect crumbled away, and the past he thought he'd buried clawed back from the shadows. Who else knew? Mia shook her head, disbelief mingling with shock. The weight of her unreality pushed against them. Their lives, now entwined in an unbreakable knot of pain and betrayal. "Mia?" James whispered. desperation tightening his chest. Was this real? Was this how their lives would pivot on this truth? More than just a businessman and a warehouse worker. They were family. And as the flames licked ever closer, James realized that the weapons they'd forged to protect their secrets only sharpened the blade that could cut them in two. "Run," her grandmother shouted, urgency building in her voice. But as they surged toward freedom, one haunting thought gripped James. Could this revelation be their salvation? Or would it become the final strand that would strangle them all? The world around him faded into chaos. But within that chaos was the terrifying promise of the truth, an echo too potent to ignore. James felt his heart pound as the officer's demand hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "James Carter, you need to come with us, now." The words blurred for a moment as the room around them pulsed with chaos. Lisa's eyes widened in alarm. "You can't take him," she shouted, her voice breaking through the noise. "He needs to stay here." Mia's grip tightened around James's arm, her own fear tangible. "What's happening? You can't take him." James turned to Lisa, desperation lacing his voice. "What do we do?" But before Lisa could respond, something unexpected shifted in the crowd. A deafening crash erupted from the other side of the glass doors, causing everyone to flinch and turn. The officers tensed, preparing for whatever was breaking loose. Then chaos poured in, all guns drawn, shouting. It felt surreal, like a terrible movie playing out. Officers moved like lightning, scrambling to maintain control as a figure pushed through the throng, timid yet powerful in its approach. "Stop!" the figure shouted, voice cracking with urgency. James squinted, his breath hitching. "Who?" But the figure was unmistakable. It was Mia's grandmother, the woman James had only heard about in passing, a ghost from their presumed past. Her hair wild, eyes bright with an unsettling fire as she locked onto Mia. "Mia!" she called, rushing forward. "Get away from him!" "What?" Mia said, bewilderment pouring over her features. "But, Mia, listen to me!" Her grandmother's voice was both commanding and terrified. "He's not who you think he is. None of this is what it seems." The words shook James to his core. "What do you mean?" He felt the ground slip beneath him as new layers of reality unfurled. But before she could answer, a blinding flash filled the room. It was so bright that for a moment, nothing else mattered. When the light faded, the air shifted like a thick fog lifted suddenly. The crowd held its breath. Then a deep rumbling echoed from outside, a siren call rising, frantic, heightened. As dust settled, all eyes turned to Mia's grandmother. Yet what happened next ripped through the atmosphere like a thunderclap. She stepped forward, revealing not just concern in her eyes, but something more. "Not only that, Mia, James is your father." Silence swallowed the room. The truth crashed over James like a tidal wave. He stepped back, heart racing, internal panic churning. "What? That's impossible!" But Mia's wide eyes glistened with unshed tears as realization dawned. "You're saying he's my father?" "Yes," her grandmother shouted, the weight of her words shattering everything built until now. "You have to understand, he was part of this twisted game, but he didn't know. He didn't know you existed until it was too late." James felt cold sweat trickle down his spine. "They told me you were gone. You decided to leave. But they didn't know," she faltered, voice trembling now. "They hid it from you both." Everything spun, confusion clawing at his mind. The tendrils of truth unraveled all he held dear. Suddenly, walls built to protect crumbled away, and the past he thought he'd buried clawed back from the shadows. Who else knew? Mia shook her head, disbelief mingling with shock. The weight of her unreality pushed against them, their lives now entwined in an unbreakable knot of pain and betrayal. "Mia," James whispered, desperation tightening his chest. Was this real? Was this how their lives would pivot on this truth? More than just a businessman and a warehouse worker, they were family. Just then, humiliation and desire whipped through James as the noise intensified around them. "He exploits you, Mia. You're not just collateral. You're the core of his gain." You have to choose, join him or break free. But just as Lisa reached for Mia, a figure loomed at the far edge of the chaos, dark and blazing with power. It was Daniel, walking calmly through the frenzy, a knowing smile on his face. Dad's big secret is his biggest trap, he grinned, voice dripping with bravado. But to stay ahead, you need to align with me, sweet Mia. We can break him together. Mia looked. Between them, confusion twisting her features. What are you saying? This doesn't make sense. And without warning, Daniel revealed a flash drive in his hand, shiny and small, a piece of technology that could alter everything. That's where your real legacy lies, Mia. The truth about your origins, and the power to control your future. The weight of his words struck like a fist to the gut. Suddenly, clarity hit. Who was Daniel really? And what if he had known all along? Panic surged through James, desperate to clear the confusion. Mia, don't listen to him, he urged, his voice raw with emotion. He's been pulling the strings. But Mia stood frozen, time stretching as she weighed the pieces before her. Who would she trust? The man she thought was helping her, or the father she had longed to know? In that moment of fragile uncertainty, everything teetered on the edge. Would she embrace the chaos, or would she seek the truth? The storm was rising, inside and out, and the air crackled with tension. James reached out, longing to pull her back from the brink. But in the chaos of revelation, the fog thickened, and the next move would shatter their world forever. Mia felt the weight of her grandmother's revelation settle on her like a heavy fog. James is my father? The words hung in the air, torn between disbelief and stark reality. No, it can't be true, James shouted, heart racing, confusion twisting his gut. You're lying. The room seemed to fade as her grandmother stepped forward, desperation dripping from her words. You need to trust me. They've been using you, Mia. You're part of something bigger than you can imagine. Daniel scoffed, arms crossed. Don't listen to her. This is just another manipulation. Join me and we'll expose everything. We can bring him down together. Mia looked back and forth, each choice feeling weighty, tearing at her heart. But why all this? Why drag me into this? Just then, the ground shook again. A vibrant crack interrupted their momentum. James pushed Mia behind him instinctively, instinct flaring. Get down, he ducked, ready to protect her at all costs. But Mia's eyes ignited. No, enough of running away. She stepped forward, her resolve forming. Like steel. It's my life. They can't control me. Mia, James called, fear lacing his voice. But she turned to him, determination hardening her features, the fire of choice blazing in her eyes. Then Lisa piped in, voice shaking but steady. You have power, Mia. Remember that. Embrace it. Mia took a deep breath, feeling the truth of her existence wash over her like a tide. She surged forward, toward the only solid ground she had, the truth. What is this drive you have, Daniel? What's in it for you? Daniel smiled, the kind of smile that makes a shiver crawl up your spine. Power, of course. But more than that, I want the truth to dismantle your father's empire. Enough, James shouted, finally facing Daniel head on, fists clenched. By his sides. You think you can break us? To use her as bait? I won't let that happen. The sirens outside blared, urgency echoed within their hearts. The building trembled again as debris rattled down. Mia, please trust me, James implored, the raw vulnerability launching from his chest. I know I haven't been there. I know I've made mistakes, but we can face this together. Mia swayed between the two men, each one tethering her in different directions. But her gaze hardened, and she stepped forward defiantly. I won't run from the truth. I won't be a pawn. She directed her gaze back toward her grandmother. What do I need to do? Take control, her grandmother shouted over the noise. It's time to reveal all. The hidden files on that drive. Use it for your freedom. Mia's heart raced with newfound strength. She glared at Daniel. You won't win. Not this time. With a final nod to her grandmother, Mia reached for the drive in Daniel's hand. He gasped, instinctively backing away. But James dove forward, tackling him to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The drive clattered to the floor. In a heartbeat, everything seemed to slow. James pinned Daniel down, rage bleeding into his actions. "You wanted this fight? Then face it." The crowd gasped, anticipation bubbling like a cauldron. As Mia picked up the drive and held it tightly, their eyes locked. There was a connection deeper than blood. It held the pulse of 1,000 choices. Outside, the tearing chaos drew nearer, but inside, a new connection formed, a bond that whispered hope in the midst of despair. With newfound courage, Mia stood tall. "You wanted the truth? Here it is." The room surged with energy. James lifted his eyes, pride glistening at the raw strength they now embodied against adversity. "We'll face whatever comes together." With that, they turned toward the world outside. The storm had come to them, but they wouldn't cower. Together they would unravel the lies that sought to bind and break them, and reclaim their lives, inch by inch. As the reporters surged forward, cameras flashing like sporadic lightning, Mia, James, and her grandmother stepped into the spotlight, not as victims, but as warriors ready to face the dark truth. They could finally rewrite the narrative that was theirs to share. The chaos brewed behind them, but their united resolve felt indomitable, a powerful force amidst the storm. And in that moment, they swore to fight for the truth, for love, for family. Before we wrap up this incredible story, you have to subscribe right now. Don't miss a single exclusive tale coming your way. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about how it all ended. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Your support makes all the difference. Don't wait even one more second to share this.